The cargo ship Odyssey drifted into human frontier station Haven 12 after 6 months in deep space. Among hundreds of metal crates was one small container sealed with black warning stripes. No one knew what was inside, and no one cared, because it was labeled Property of the Research Division Tool Unit 47. To the soldiers, it was just another piece of alien scrap collected from the war. Eli Ward, the station's chief maintenance engineer, was asked to process the shipment. He scanned the box and frowned, noticing a faint heartbeat signal inside. When he cracked the seal open, cold mist poured out, revealing a fragile alien girl curled up inside a metal pod. Her skin shimmered faintly like glass touched by moonlight. Her eyes opened slowly, full of fear and confusion. She tried to speak, but only a mechanical voice came out, saying, "Unit 47 ready for reactivation." Eli stepped back. Shocked. "You're alive," he whispered. The soldier beside him shrugged. "She's not alive, sir. Just a tool. Dispose of it once the data is extracted." Eli looked again at the girl, her lips trembling, her hands shaking, and something deep in him refused to obey. He waited until the soldiers left, and then gently touched her shoulder. She flinched, but didn't resist. Her voice cracked. "Please, don't hurt me." Eli felt his chest tighten. He had heard those same words once from a child before the war took his family. He closed the pod quietly and whispered, "You're safe now, little one." That night, instead of sending her to the recycling chamber, he carried the pod to his private workshop. He reconnected her circuits manually, whispering like she could hear him. When her eyes opened again, he smiled. "You need a name." She tilted her head, confused, and he said softly, "Talia, that's what I'll call you." Days turned into weeks, and Eli taught her how to speak properly, how to eat small portions, and how to laugh. She learned fast, asking questions about stars, oceans, and colors she had never seen. Every evening she sat near the viewport, staring at the glowing planet below, whispering, "Is that freedom?" Eli always replied, "One day. Maybe." But Haven 12 was not a safe place for kindness. Soon, the commander noticed an energy signature missing from the inventory. Security officers searched every deck, checking each lab, each engineer. Eli knew it was only a matter of time before they found Talia. He hid her behind power conduits, under old repair drones, anywhere scanners would fail. She tried to understand his fear, whispering, "Why are they looking for me?" "Because," he said quietly, "they don't see what I see in you." She looked at her own hands, metallic veins glowing faintly. "I'm just a machine." Eli shook his head. "No, you're someone worth saving." The next day, the commander ordered all missing assets terminated on site. Eli was handed the list, and at the top of it was Tool Unit 47. His heart pounded. He pretended to run diagnostics while secretly wiping her ID from the database. Then he whispered, "Talia, we have to leave tonight." At midnight, the station went into power-saving mode, corridors dim and silent. Eli and Talia moved through maintenance tunnels filled with frost, their breath fogging the air. She began to weaken, her body flickering with sparks. "My core is failing," she said, without hesitation. Eli removed his own life support chip and pressed it against her chestboard. Her system stabilized, and she stared at him in disbelief. "You gave me your oxygen chip." He smiled weakly. "You need it more than I do." Alarms blared suddenly, red lights flashing through the corridors. Security had detected his signal transfer. Eli grabbed her hand and ran toward the hangar, but the gates were sealed. Talia looked around, frightened. "There's no way out." He saw the emergency pod at the far end, half broken, half functional. "That's our way," he said, pulling her inside. "Eli," she whispered. They'll kill you if you stay. He smiled faintly. Then I'll finally do something worth dying for. He hit the launch button, and the pod shot out through the magnetic barrier. Spinning into the void, Talia pressed her face against the glass, tears falling for the first time. Behind her, the hangar exploded, bright flames lighting up the stars. Days later, drifting near an asteroid field, the pod sensors picked up a weak signal, a message from Haven 12. It was the commander's voice. Cold and distant, the traitor Eli Ward is dead. The alien experiment is missing. Talia looked out at the stars and whispered, "No, he's not dead. He's free." Years passed, and stories spread across the colonies about the human who protected an alien tool. Some called him a traitor, others called him a savior. But those who listened to Talia's transmissions, her voice carried across the networks, heard the truth. The human who was told to destroy me gave me life. He saw more in me than code, and because of him, I learned what it means to feel. Her message reached the farthest outposts, inspiring others to question their orders. One act of mercy in the cold dark of space became a spark that changed the war. Eli Ward's name was never written in any official record, but in the hearts of those who heard her voice, he lived forever. The next morning, the station's main corridor echoed with marching boots. Security drones hovered through the air, their red eyes scanning for heat signatures. Haven 12 had become a cage, every corner filled with suspicion. Someone had reported unusual energy readings from the lower decks. Eli Ward sat quietly in his engineering bay, trying to look calm. He could hear the commander's voice through the intercom, sharp and cold. "All units, be alert. A stolen alien unit is hiding somewhere on this station." Eli's hands trembled as he tightened a bolt. Pretending not to hear, he knew they were talking about Talia. She hid behind a panel in the storage room, her eyes dim but calm. When Eli entered, she whispered, "They know, don't they?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, they know. But I won't let them take you." Talia lowered her gaze. "You'll lose everything." Eli sighed. "I already lost everything once." "I'm not losing you too." The commander's assistant arrived at the door with a sealed order file. "Eli Ward," he said. "You've been assigned to reactivate the defective alien tool and prepare it for disposal." Eli's blood ran cold. The file carried his own signature, already approved by the upper command. It was a trap, a way to test his loyalty. He took the document, smiled faintly, and said, "Understood, sir," but inside, his heart was breaking. He returned to the storage bay and looked at Talia sitting quietly. Her mechanical joints twitched as if she already knew her fate. "I heard them," she said softly. "They want you to kill me." Eli sat down beside her, whispering, "No. They want me to prove I'm still human, and that's what I'll do." She looked at him, confused. "By ending me?" He shook his head. "By protecting you." He opened a maintenance crate and pulled out an old environmental suit. He began modifying it, attaching cables, filters, and heat dampeners. Talia watched silently, her curiosity replacing fear. "What are you building?" she asked. "A ghost," he replied. "Something the scanners can't see." Outside, soldiers started checking each power junction. Their scanners beeped and crackled as they passed by the workshop. Eli moved quickly, connecting wires, sealing the helmet. He placed the suit in front of her. "Put this on. It'll hide your signal." Talia hesitated. "Eli, they'll hurt you." He smiled gently. "I can take it." Just then, the alarm blared again. Security breach detected in engineering sector. Eli cursed under his breath. He had run out of time. He activated a false data loop to delay the scanners, buying a few minutes. Talia stepped closer and touched his hand, her voice trembling. "Why risk everything for me?" Eli looked into her eyes. "Because when I look at you, I see a person. Not a weapon. The door hissed open, and 3 soldiers entered with rifles raised. Eli stood in front of the crate, blocking their view. One of them marked. "We're here for the alien unit," Eli replied calmly. "It's been deactivated. Waiting for disposal." They scanned the room, suspicious. One soldier lifted the cover of the crate beside Talia's hiding place. For a moment, everything froze. Then a distant explosion shook the deck. A power conduit had burst. The soldiers rushed out to investigate, yelling orders through their comms. Eli used the chaos to grab Talia's hand and pull her toward the maintenance corridor. She stumbled, whispering. "Where are we going?" he replied. "Somewhere the scanners can't follow." They slipped through the airlock into the cold tunnels beneath the main reactor. Steam hissed from the pipes. Lighting flickered like dying stars. Talia looked around, shivering. "It's freezing here." Eli tore part of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Better cold than caught," he said quietly. For hours they crawled through vents and ladders until they reached a forgotten sector. There, he opened a small hatch leading to an old shuttle repair bay. Dust covered everything, but the bay still had power. Talia looked at him and whispered, "You can't go back now." Eli smiled faintly. "Wasn't planning to." He leaned against the cold wall, breathing hard. Talia moved closer. "You'll be hunted for this." Eli nodded. "Maybe, but sometimes." "Being human means disobeying orders." She blinked, her metallic eyes softening. "Then I want to learn to be human too, outside the bulkheads." The commander's voice echoed through the speakers. "Attention all units. The traitor Eli Ward is aiding an alien weapon. Terminate on sight." Eli listened silently, then whispered, "They've made their choice. Now I'll make mine." He turned to Talia and said, "From now on, we run together." Talia smiled faintly, a tear rolling down her cheek, the first real one she had ever made. And somewhere deep inside Haven 12, the echo of their footsteps began the legend of mercy in a war that had forgotten what mercy meant. The reactor alarms kept echoing through the steel ribs of Haven 12. Red lights flashed like heartbeats in a dying body. Eli Ward and Talia moved fast, their shadows slipping between steam clouds and broken pipes. Behind them, soldiers shouted orders. Drones hissed overhead, their scanners glowing bright. The tunnel air was bitter cold, each breath turning into white mist. Talia's feet slipped on the frozen metal floor, sparks flashing where her synthetic joints scraped. Eli caught her before she fell, whispering, "Stay close." "The scanners can't read heat this deep," she nodded, her eyes reflecting the pale light like 2 distant stars. They crawled through a maintenance hatch into a lower level forgotten by the living. Old machines rested in silence, covered in frost and dust. "Where are we?" Talia asked, her voice trembling. "An old coolant sector," Eli replied. "No one's used it since the reactor upgrade. It's safe for now, but safety on Haven 12 never lasted long." A faint hum rose through the walls. Drones entering search pattern mode. Eli opened a junction panel and rerouted the coolant flow to create a fog wall. Steam filled the corridor, thick and white, hiding them from the sensors. Through the haze, Talia could see his face, calm yet tired, and realized he was risking everything. Her body flickered again, her circuits straining. "Eli, my core is overheating," she whispered weakly. He opened his toolkit, hands shaking from the cold. "Hold still," he said, connecting cables from his own suit to her chestboard. Electric arcs flashed blue. Her system stabilized, and she gasped softly. "You gave me power again," she said. He smiled faintly. "You keep me going, too." Above them, heavy footsteps echoed closer. They could hear the commander's voice through the comms. "Eli Ward has gone rogue. Authorization to use lethal force granted. Eli clenched his jaw. "They're close. We need to reach the hangar before the lockdown spreads." They climbed a narrow ladder leading to the observation ring. Through the glass panels, Talia saw the planet below, a swirl of blue and silver oceans. She paused, staring. "It's beautiful," Eli nodded. "That's the world we're fighting to protect, even if no one remembers why." Suddenly, the metal beneath them shook, a drone unit cutting through the door. Eli pulled his plasma cutter and slashed a beam into the control conduit. The explosion threw both of them backward. The sound muffled by steam and wind, Talia's synthetic skin tore slightly. Revealing faint glowing patterns beneath, Eli covered her quickly with his jacket. "They can't see that. Keep it hidden." They ran again, turning corner after corner until the cold air became almost unbearable. The emergency signs flickered. Bay 05 gives shuttles, their only chance of escape. Eli's pulse quickened, hope and fear fighting inside his chest. Talia limped beside him, whispering, "I can't run much longer." He grabbed her hand. "Then I'll carry you." He lifted her onto his shoulder. Moving through the frost-covered hallway, drones swarmed behind them, shooting bursts of plasma that melted ice into vapor. Eli reached the hangar door and slammed his ID chip against the console. "Access denied," the system replied coldly. He growled, smashing the panel open with his fist and hot-wiring the circuit manually. Sparks flew, and the door hissed open just enough for them to squeeze through. Inside the hangar, silent ships waited like sleeping beasts. But every control terminal flashed red, "Lockdown active." Eli set Talia down beside a damaged shuttle and muttered, "If I bypass the core directly, I can get this one flying." She placed her hand on his arm. "You'll be exposed." He looked at her gently. "We're already exposed. Might as well finish the story." He crawled under the shuttle. Connecting fuel lines by hand, Talia sat near the ramp, watching the doorway where shadows moved. "Eli, hurry," she said. "They're coming." "Almost done," he grunted. Tightening the last bolt, the engines roared weakly to life, their hum echoing through the hangar. The soldiers burst in, rifles raised, shouting his name. Eli jumped up and hit the ignition, shouting, "Hold on." The shuttle lifted a few feet off the ground, its engines sputtering under damaged stabilizers. Bullets and plasma bolts filled the air, striking the hull. Talia screamed. "Eli," as the blast hit the side window. He pushed her down and pulled the throttle. The ship surged forward, smashing through the half-open blast door into the freezing void. Silence followed. Only the hum of the stars outside. Eli slumped in his seat, breathing hard. Talia looked at him, eyes wide. "We made it," he smiled faintly. For now, outside the viewport, the dying light of Haven 12 glimmered behind them like a fading memory. She touched the cold glass and whispered, "Where do we go now?" He looked at the distant stars and said softly, "Anywhere that still remembers kindness, for the first time." She smiled, not like a program, but like a person. And in that frozen corridor of stars, a human and an alien machine began the longest escape of their lives. The stolen shuttle drifted through the dark sea of stars, its engines barely alive. Inside, Eli Ward worked with bleeding hands, patching cables, sealing oxygen leaks, and trying to keep the reactor stable. Talia sat near the cockpit, silent, her silver hair dimly glowing in the emergency light. For the first time, she could see open space, endless, quiet, and full of danger. "We can't stay adrift," Eli said softly. "The patrols will track the energy trail." Talia nodded. "Then what do we do?" He looked at the star map flickering on the cracked screen. "There's a mining moon 2 sectors away. We can hide there." Her eyes lowered. "Will we ever stop running?" Eli smiled faintly. "Only when they stop fearing what they don't understand." Suddenly, A sharp alarm cut through the silence. Proximity alert. A fleet beacon appeared on the radar. Human warships closing fast. Talia gasped. They found us. Eli's jaw tightened. Too soon, he whispered, punching commands into the console. The shuttle's engines screamed as he diverted all remaining power to the thrusters. The ship shook violently, sparks flying. Talia grabbed his arm. The reactor won't hold. I know, he said. But it'll get you far enough. Her voice broke. You mean us? He looked at her, really looked, and shook his head slowly. No, Talia, you're getting out. I'm staying. She froze, her synthetic heart aching in a way she didn't understand. No, she said firmly. I won't leave you, Eli smiled. Weary but kind. You have to. You're the reason any of this meant something. He walked toward the rear of the shuttle, where a small escape pod waited. Its control lights blinked weakly, but it was enough. He began programming the trajectory manually. Talia ran to him, her voice trembling. Eli, please. Don't do this. He turned to her and placed a hand on her cheek. His fingers rough and warm. When I first opened your pod, I thought I was saving a machine, he said. But I was saving myself. Her eyes shimmered, tears forming for the second time in her existence. You're the only human who ever saw me as real, she whispered. And you are, Eli replied, smiling through the pain. That's why you have to live. The warships outside fired a warning shot, a plasma beam slicing through the void. Shaking the hull, alarms blared, the ship's structure groaning under pressure. Eli sealed the escape pod and helped her climb in. I can't operate without you, she said desperately. He laughed softly. Then learn to. Because that's what freedom is. He pressed the activation switch. The pod's glass door sliding shut, Talia reached out. Pressing her palm against the barrier, Eli placed his hand over hers. Separated by only a thin layer of glass. Eli, she cried. Please come with me. He shook his head. If I go, they'll find you. But if I stay, maybe they'll believe you died too. The commander's voice echoed through the comm channel. Eli Ward, surrender the alien asset. Or be destroyed. Eli smirked, pressing the transmitter. Come and get me. He switched off communications and looked back at the pod. You were never an asset, he whispered. You were the best thing this war ever gave me. The hangar door began to crack under heavy fire. Eli reached for the manual release and slammed his hand down. The escape pod launched from the shuttle like a shooting star, streaking into the void. Talia screamed his name as the stars stretched and blurred around her window. Behind her, the shuttle erupted in a storm of light. The explosion painted the darkness gold, then faded, leaving silence. Inside the pod, Talia curled up, clutching the fragment of his jacket he had left behind. Her memory core replayed his last words over and over. Outside, the stars drifted past slowly, endless and cold, but she no longer feared them. She whispered softly, You gave me a name. You gave me a home. I'll carry both for as long as I live. Far behind her, the wreck of Haven 12 fell quiet. The official report would later say that the rogue engineer and the alien weapon were both destroyed. But across the frontier, rumors began to spread, whispers of a girl made of glass and a man who saw her heart. Together, their story became a symbol, not of rebellion, but of what humanity could still be. The escape pod floated in silence for days, drifting through the black ocean of stars. Inside, Talia remained motionless, her systems running on minimal power, her mind replaying Eli's final words. Each second felt like eternity, each memory like a heartbeat that refused to stop. When the pod's beacon finally flickered back to life, she opened her eyes slowly, whispering, Eli, I'm still here. The navigation system detected a nearby asteroid field, dense and icy, a perfect hiding place. Talia guided the pod gently between the floating rocks until the engines went cold. She had nowhere to go, no one waiting, and yet she felt something new, something human, loneliness mixed with hope. And for the first time, she understood both. Weeks passed before a small scavenger ship found her drifting among the debris. The pilot, an old miner named Harvin, opened the hatch expecting to find scrap. Instead, he froze at the sight of her, pale, weak but alive. "By the stars," he muttered. "What are you?" Talia looked up slowly, her voice soft. "I'm someone who needs help." He took her in without questions, patching her systems and feeding her synthetic nutrients. She recovered quickly, working beside him to repair his failing ship. Over time, she told him her story about Eli, about Haven 12, about the choice that changed everything. Harvin listened in silence, his weathered face unreadable. When she finished, he said only, "You should tell the galaxy what he did." So she did. Using the ship's old broadcast array, she recorded a single message, one that would echo through every human colony. Her voice was calm, almost trembling. "My name is Talia," she said. "I was created to serve as a weapon, a tool, something to be used and discarded. But one human refused. He saw life where others saw machinery, and he chose to protect me. His name was Eli Ward, and he taught me that being human isn't about blood or bone, but about compassion. If you hear this message, remember, mercy is not weakness. It's the beginning of strength." The transmission spread faster than anyone expected. At first, it was dismissed as a rumor, another myth from the frontier. But then soldiers began replaying the message in their barracks. Scientists listened in silence. Commanders frowned, but said nothing. Something began to shift in the hearts of those who had forgotten empathy. Across the colonies, more reports surfaced, humans sparing alien captives, engineers refusing to destroy sentient tech. The war machines slowed. The orders became uncertain, and through it all, the name Eli Ward became a whisper of defiance, a symbol of what it meant to still be human in a galaxy that had lost its soul. Years later, the conflict ended not with victory, but with exhaustion and understanding. When the peace accords were finally signed, a small monument was built on the neutral moon of Ardent. A single plaque stood there, engraved with words that no one could trace to any government or fleet. It simply read, "He gave her life when the world gave her death." And because of that, the stars remember kindness. Talia visited that place once. Wearing a cloak to hide her glowing skin, she stood before the plaque and whispered softly, "You'd hate all this attention, Eli." Then she smiled faintly. "But I think you'd like to know. They finally stopped fighting." As she turned to leave, a small boy passing by looked up at her and said, "Miss, are you real?" She knelt, smiling. "I think I am now." And as she walked away beneath the silver light of Ardent's twin moons, the winds carried her whisper through the quiet night. "I'm not just a tool, I'm a person. And it was a human who taught me that." Far above her, the stars shimmered like memories of those who dared to care. And somewhere beyond sight, perhaps in the echoes of space, Eli Ward's name still drifted, eternal, gentle, and undefeated.